Hello everybody. Today I'm working with some ash trees again. These are trees that seed themselves very widely around the place and have given me lots of examples that I can work with, and today in particular I'm looking at ash that I've grown as small bonsai. As you can see from the can here for scale, this tree's height to the top of the trunk from the root base is almost exactly the same height as a full-size can of fizzy drink. So it's not a mame by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a very small tree. Let me give you a bit of a whirl around. Conventional wisdom says that trees with compound leaves like these don't make good small bonsai, but I've found that if you choose carefully from seedlings, those that naturally have a small leaf anyway, once they're confined into a small bonsai pot, or any small pot for that matter, the leaves will stay small quite naturally, and it doesn't take too long. I think this tree's probably been in training 5 years, 6 years maybe, before you get something that looks quite good. Doesn't have a lot of fine ramification as yet for winter viewing, but actually the leaves themselves actually look quite twiggy, make the tree look quite twiggy, and as I've said before, bonsai is pretty much an illusion. You're trying to make things seem as they're not. So what I do to keep these trees small, well, very little. They do get trimmed fairly regularly. They don't get pollarded as such. I can see I have a dead piece just there, and this tree is probably my favourite, but it's not the best example of a tree that needs something doing with. So I do have a bit of extension growth here, but it's not really long enough for me yet to take that back. So just using this tree as this is one of my more refined specimens. Nothing that you'd want to exhibit in a major show or anything, but I like looking at it on the bench, and as I say, if you look at it from a few feet away, it gives quite an illusion of a small tree with lots of leaves and a healthy crown. So let's move that one out of the way, and we'll look at some that are beginning to get to the stage where they need a little bit of work doing. Apologies for my neighbour starting to strim, but we'll carry on anyway. Now this tree isn't as refined as the other one, though it does have fairly small leaves, and has started to develop an interesting trunk. You can see it was given a quite substantial chop just here at one point. Might zoom in a bit. It's given quite a substantial chop here, here, and again here and here. So you can see this tree is several years old and has been chopped several times in its lifetime so far, and now we're beginning to refine some of the branches to create a crown. So literally all I'm going to do with this tree is I'm going to cut back all the new growth back to a pair of leaves there, and it will probably sprout some of these buds, and I can begin to build a crown. Likewise, I'm going to nip out the centres of the growing points on this branch, which will now begin to fill in the crown in this side. So as you can see, it's got quite an interesting trunk base, almost like a pregnant belly there, but I like it. Again, not a classically beautiful Nibari, but as you probably gathered, I don't tend to go for the classically beautiful tree. That's why I love pollards so much. Yeah, I loves me an ugly tree. Okay, so let's move on to some others. Again, we have quite an interesting root base. This tree sort of comes up and across and back. Was chopped quite radically there and there, and a crown is now developing, and I am just literally going to be cutting it back. These growing tips, and that will promote a lot of back budding. These trees were repotted last year. The link to the playlist is in the description, so you can go back and look at that if you wish to. I'll also put it in the end screen. So you can go back and see the process of these trees being repotted. Yeah, take that back as well, and within a couple of weeks this will start to have sprouted again, and this is my perceived front. Just take that leaf off where it's hiding some of the trunk so you can see a bit better. There's a piece here that's kind of growing in the wrong place. I think I'm going to keep it, let it grow a bit, and wire it once it's long enough to be able to wire, which it isn't at the moment, to grow into this direction a little more. So I'm not going to cut that one off. You can see I'll have a lot of buds here, and once they start to burst I might even shorten this piece further. So let me just give you a close-up of that root base. As you can see, we have this sort of, I need to clean off some of this moss, but I haven't done that yet. This is sometimes an issue when you have too many trees keeping up. This root, first glance it looks dead, but it's still flexible, so I'm going to leave it, but I might lose it in next year's repot. Okay, here's another, the last of the trees I've actually got in bonsai pots at the moment, and again it's shooting quite nicely. It's been chopped several times. This one's a younger tree, possibly only 4 years old from seed, and it's going to get a good chop back quite hard on this new growth. Back to 2 sets of leaves, and will be allowed to sprout again. It has slightly larger leaves than some of the others, but not too out of scale, but borderline. So as I said before, you do need to, you can grab yourself a handful of ash seeds. They may take 2 years to come up, but then you can start choosing your way through your seedlings. So let me show you a few others that I've been working on that haven't graduated to bonsai pots yet. So these are just some of the seedlings. Seedlings have more, again, between 4 and maybe 5 years, 6 years old. I have a bunch of these, and you begin to look out for the ones that show the small characteristic leaves, and these are some of those. This one I've chopped here and here in the past, and it has an interesting curve, but this piece is far too straight, so I'm going to chop it. I can see there is a bud just here, so I'm going to chop it there, and likewise this tree I'm going to shorten back just in a few places, and that will just begin to give me a spreading trunk. And then maybe next year, if I get some pots to put them in next spring, I may pot some of these up into smaller pots. This one has similarly had a very large chop trunk there when it was probably about 3 years old, and again allowed to grow, and then was chopped here at this point, chopped again here. So as you can see, it takes a few years, but you do begin to develop movement and taper quite quickly, and if you pick your trees wisely, you can get some with some quite small leaves. Again, this has got a little birch companion tree that's self-seeded into it. And then finally, should you wish to, either using a piece of wire or a washer, you can insert several trees, wire them at the base, and begin to form nice little ash clumps like these. Obviously this is a much smaller version than the larger ones that I showed in a previous video, but yeah, it's obviously they fuse nicely at the base, and I'm now going to grow them on, chop them back, grow them on, chop them back, until I've got something that's beginning to look a bit like a bonsai. So that's about it for this one for everyone. So just a reminder, ash seedlings are 10 a penny. If you can find an ash tree with seed on it, remember where it is now. I'll show you a picture of what the seed looks like now. And then in the autumn you can harvest some of that seed, sow it and wait for it to come up, pick yourself some pieces, pick yourself some seedlings, put them up individually, choose the ones you like. It may take 2 years, as they say, for the seedlings to actually come up, but when they do, they grow very rapidly. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, thank you all for watching. Please do take care of yourselves. Stay safe.